So we all want to have fantastic guitar tone, but how do we achieve that? Well, it's not through buying an expensive guitar, and it's not through setting up an elaborate pedal board. You take that guitar and that pedal board and put it through a practice amp, and the tone is gonna suck. Guitar tone is all about the player and about the amp. So today we're gonna test out a $200 all-tube amp made by StageRight. Now, about a month ago, I reviewed this $100 guitar from Monoprice. This was the Indio Classic. Now, that video really blew up. I think a month later, it's getting close to 2 million views. Apparently, a lot of sellers really jacked up the prices on these guitars, but it's still available on the Monoprice website for 99 bucks. So, I'm not associated with them at all. I just randomly picked a guitar to review that was cheap, and I thought it was fantastic. So anyway, in that video, tons of you guys said, if you like that guitar, they also make a tube amp for 200 bucks. You need to check it out. So today's the day. I've got it in the studio. Let's find out if it's any good. All right, so we're gonna subdivide today's video into 3 parts. Part 1, we're gonna unbox the thing, hopefully get access to the tubes, check out what's in there, maybe upgrade them in the future, we'll see. Anyway, and check out the speaker and the enclosure and the features, that kind of thing. Part 2 is gonna be the sound demo. So if you don't care about specs and all that kind of stuff, you can go ahead, skip to the sound demo. I'll put the times in the video description below. And then part 3 is gonna be the wrap up, the good, the bad, because you know, for 200 bucks, there's gonna be some bad. I can almost guarantee it. But anyway, we'll go through the goods and the bads. And you know, this amp really has great reviews. I checked it out, so we're gonna find out if that's warranted. All right, let's start with part 1 and unbox the beast. All right, well, this thing's nicely packaged. It's double boxed, and it's got the old foam cubes. Let's pull her out and see what we got. Now, the first thing I noticed is this thing is crazy light for a tube combo amp. Wow, like the Blue Angel in the corner there is probably like 60 pounds. It's super heavy. This thing weighs like almost nothing. All right, let's take a closer look. Now, I've got to say, aesthetically, the first impressions of this amp are really good. I find this really attractive. It looks like a vintage combo amp. Really, really cool. So you've got the cream kind of covering and the deep chocolate grille, chicken head knobs, everything, you know, kind of looks like a vintage combo. So I'm going to tip it forward here for you guys so you can see the top. So nice, really heavy duty carrying handle. As I mentioned, extremely light, which probably means the enclosure is not solid wood, but we'll see if we can get to the bottom of that. And the front face is mirrored, as you guys can see. So definitely not my favorite for reading, you know, what the controls are, but it is what it is. Now, because of the mirrored finish, you guys may not be able to see this, but it's a really cool feature. This amp is 15 watts, but it's got a little button to take it down to 1 watt. So if you need to play really quietly, but you still want to get, you know, your power tubes and preamp tubes working together, you can crank the volume up, but keep it on 1 watt. So you'll still get that saturated tube sound, but without all the volume. So that's a really neat feature. Other than that, the controls are fairly basic. We've got our on-off switch, the gain control for distortion, the overall master volume, tone control, which is really like a presence, controls like the high-end frequencies, and then bass, middle, treble, and spring reverb. Now on the backside, we get an external cabinet out, which is really nice because if you want something a little bit bigger than this small combo, you can power it with the preamp section and go to an external cab. That's great. Effects loop, and then a foot switch for the reverb on or off. Since this is just a 1-channel amp, you're not going to get channel switching. Now, before we get too far, we've run into the first downside. First of all, the power cable is non-removable. So if you run into problems or the cord gets yanked and something happens, it's not going to be an easy replacement. On my other amps, you can just simply pull, you know, the power connector out and replace the cable. So, potential downside number 1. All right, I can definitely see some tubes lurking in the back. Let's remove these 4 screws, see what's lurking underneath. All right, let's open it up and see what we got on the inside. That is a tight fit. There we go. So as you guys can see on the back of the tube guard, it is press board. So that's probably why the amp is super light. adhesive everywhere, and not, you know, particularly well cut on the back. So there you go, another downside. So the speaker in this baby is a Celestion 7080 or a G12P80. So looks like it's got quick connects on the wiring and 4 bolts keeping it in. So swapping it out to something a little better would be a super easy job. Okay, I've got the amp on its face again. Let's check out the tubes. So we've got 2 EL84s and 3 AX7s. So pretty much a Blues Junior clone. Well, lots of amps, but pretty typical stuff for like a Fender type sound. Let's check out one of the preamp tubes. So they all have these little retainer guards. You can just clip those off and pop the tube out. It's in there pretty good. It's nice and tight connection. Now this is definitely an unbranded tube. So there's no markings on it anywhere. So I think it would be really interesting to maybe get like a high-end set of tubes and you know, compare it against, you know, the Chinese no names here and just see, you know, what the tonal difference would be. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see me, you know, pick up a better set of tubes and see if it makes a tonal difference. Now with all these tubes, they always, you know, miss one pin there, so it only goes in one way. So you can't screw that up. So if you pull one out or whatever, they only fit in one way. So you just got to kind of match up the gap and then put it back in. So let's do that now. There we go. And then you just clip the guard on, and that keeps the tubes tight and from rattling, you know, when you're cranking up the volume. Let's check out one of the power amp tubes. Same kind of thing. I'm assuming it's going to be unbranded as well. Yeah, and it definitely is. So there you go. No name tubes. But hey, you know, I don't know if that matters. We're going to do a fully featured tone test and check everything out. Now looking at the amp from the other direction here, we've got a little Velcro retaining loop for tying up your power cable when you're moving your amp from place to place. Like I said before, it would really be nice to have a removable cable in case anything goes wrong. And here we've got our reverb tank. So we've got actually proper spring reverb. Again, we'll test that out in the audio section, but overall, not too bad. All right, so those are the broad strokes of the Stage Right tube amp. What we want to do now is do some playing. So let's get on to the fun stuff. We're going to be using a Baja Telecaster and the 10S DBG Aurora. This guitar should be able to push that little tube amp a little bit harder with the Seymour Duncan pickups. So that'll be interesting. And maybe if we have time, we'll even throw in the Indio Classic, the blue one behind my shoulder. That's our $100 guitar plus $200 tube amp. So $300 a tone, see what that gets you. That might be kind of interesting as well. So the tube amp's been warming up for 10 or 15 minutes here. The tubes are hot and glowing, which is awesome. So what we're gonna do is work our way through the gain stages, play some clean and some breakup, some classic rock, kind of mid-gain stuff, and then crank it all the way up and see what kind of gain we can get out of it. Let's get started. So here are my final thoughts on the Stage Right tube amp. Well, let's start with the positives. Number one, and the inescapable thing about this amp, is it's $200. That's an astonishing value, just straight up. That's a great, great value. And if we're completely honest, it's pretty much a clone of the Fender Blues Jr. Let's not try to hide that fact, it just is a clone amp. But at 200 bucks, it's a third the price, and it's lightweight, and it sounds great. So yeah, some huge, huge positives right off the top. I thought when I was playing with single coils, it had all that Fender-y chime up on the high end. I thought it sounded really great. And when I just, sustained a chord, you could hear all that overlapping frequencies and harmonics and tubey goodness. It was all there. So the price is amazing, the sound is good, and the features are pretty decent. I mean, it's not like a modeling amp where you can have a bunch of different effects. All you get is spring reverb, which sounds okay. I thought the trail on that reverb is a little long for just a general spring reverb. It sounded decent when I was playing like that atmospheric reverb kind of clip. But for just a general spring reverb, I sort of feel like the trail is a little bit long, but overall sounds pretty good. So features for a tube amp, on par. It's not going to be a modeling amp. You're not going to get, all your effects and a bunch of different, amp types and stuff like that. It's just a basic tube amp, but features decent for the price. Now, as for the downsides, I think most of it is construction related. All the parts do feel pretty lightweight and pretty cheap. Like the chicken head knobs are just super lightweight plastic. The outside covering is really rubbery and doesn't feel great in the hand. I think it looks good. Press board on the back and probably the cabinet. So it's super lightweight. I can't speak to obviously the longevity of it. I need to take it out of the house and go a few places with it and see how it handles that long term. But I do like that it's super lightweight, which probably means I'm going to grab it over the Blue Angel unless I really need a specific really loud tone. The amp can keep up with a drummer. It's quite loud actually for 15 watts. It's not going to be the perfect amp for you if you're in a metal band and your drummer's using double kick and China cymbals and all that. It probably won't keep up to that, but for just like a general like rock, classic rock, blues, jazz gigs, the amp is really great. So those are my thoughts on the Stage Right tube amp. I think any negatives are really wildly outweighed by a bunch of positives. And if you've ever played a Blues Junior or any sort of small footprint tube amp, you pretty much know what you're gonna get. You're gonna get a great sound. Now it does sound slightly boxier than my Blue Angel, which is, you know, a cabinet a third, wider and quite a bit deeper. It's still a 112 combo, similar type tubes and everything like that. It does have a much better speaker, so the Blue Angel sounds much better. But at 200 bucks, what a great backup! What a great amp to let kids play on. Put it in your basement, use it as a backup, use it as your main amp, and as long as you don't need massive amounts of volume, you're good to go. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Be sure to check out the t-shirt store and the tab store on your way out. Other than that, have an awesome week, you guys. Take care.